Okay, so today we're just going to learn about the key features of graphs. As we do so, what we're going to do is you're going to color this sheet that you have as we talk about it, and then you'll use this as notes in order to answer a few questions coming up. So first things first, this is just a regular graph, okay? Here we have our y-axis, here we have our x-axis, okay? And then as you can see the function, we have starting right here and then ending over here, okay? So we're just going to kind of talk about that and just different parts. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what it means to be positive. Okay, so on your page, add that positive means anywhere where the graph is above the x-axis. Okay, so it's anywhere the graph is above the x-axis. So now we'll take a color. I'm going to choose this one. And choose one that kind of goes with the land, and I'm going to highlight where it says positive. Okay, just kind of highlight that a little bit. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight everywhere on the graph where it would be positive. So I know I'm positive right here, and I'm just positive the whole way. And I'm just going to shade that. Okay, you just keep going up until you hit right here. So everything above this point right there will be positive. Okay, it's everywhere above the x-axis. Now, going along with that, negative is where the graph is below. So I'm just going to put below the x-axis right here. Okay, I mean that kind of makes sense. We're pretty used to that. And I'm going to take color blue, and I'm going to color it in. So we know right here is negative, 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 and just kind of all along. The colors kind of correspond to the picture, right? Like right here, coloring that blue because that's like water. Water is below sea level. The x-axis kind of represents that. The mountain is green. It's above sea level, and you know, plants and stuff. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is what it means to be increasing, and that's where the graph goes up. Okay, so the graph goes up as if you were walking from left to right. So I'll just add that. So I'll just say from left to right. Okay. The color I'm going to pick for this one is, I'm going to do red. So I'm going to highlight the increasing, and then I start increasing like right here, and I just kind of increase and I increase and I increase up until I hit this point, and once I hit that point, I'm done increasing. The graph is no longer going up. It'd be like I'm walking downhill. Then I walk downhill for a while, and then I come right here into the water. Even though it's negative, it's still increasing. Okay, and I go up, and I'm increasing to there, and then I end increasing over here. And now, obviously, decreasing is where the graph goes down from left to right. So the graph goes down from left to right. Okay, and so for that one, I'm going to use this weird color. I'm not sure what color this is. It's like a blue, I guess. But decreasing, right, is where it goes down. So over here, we can see it's going down until it hits right there. Here we can see it's going down, and then going down. And you just kind of keep going. Right here is where it's all decreasing, and then decreasing right here. Okay, so the graph is usually increasing or decreasing somewhere, unless it has what we call zero change. Zero change is exactly what it sounds like. It's where the graph goes doesn't go up or doesn't go down, it stays horizontal. So where the graph stays horizontal, which means the graph is going to go like that. Okay, it's not going up or down. We call that zero change. And on this graph, we don't really have anywhere that's a zero change. Okay, now we're just going to talk about a few of these other points. So up here at that mountaintop, okay, the mountains, right, are the highest points. And the mountaintop represents the highest point on our graph. Okay, and so I'm going to call that right here. I'm going to say that this is the absolute because it is the absolutely highest. And for things that are highest, we say maximum. Okay, and it's the highest point on the graph. Okay, so the highest point on graph. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Maximum is a high point, and we call it absolute because there's nothing higher. And that is true actually for even points where like it starts high and then drops like that. That would still be an absolute maximum because it's still the highest point. But as we can see over here by where this fish is at in this little bubble, okay, right here, this point, we can see that that's a high point, right? It's like a hill. It goes up and then it goes down. And because of that, we don't call that the absolute maximum because it's not the highest point, but we will call that a relative maximum. Okay, it's a relative maximum. And all that really means is it's a high point, but not the highest. So it's a high point, but not the highest. Okay. All right. Now we just got a few more. I mean, we can take a guess as to what this point's going to be, right? If the high point's the absolute maximum, the absolute lowest point, like the lowest point in the ocean, is what we would call an absolute minimum. Okay, so it's an absolute minimum. And it is the lowest point on the graph. And once again, this applies if I had a graph like here where it's low and then I go up and up like that. This is what we would consider our absolute minimum. Okay. And then this little low point here where it's like a valley, right? You go down and then up. That was what we would consider a relative minimum. Okay, so I'm going to call that a relative minimum. And at this point, it is a low point, but not the lowest. And now I know it seems silly to talk about this, but these ideas are actually really important, especially later on. Graphs tell a story, whether it's about selling products, whether it's about a population. And so being able to understand these terms and connecting them to the graph will allow you to better communicate your ideas with those around you. The last two things we're going to talk about is right here, this point right here. Okay, see how it's crossing the y-axis, right? It's going crossing it. That is what we would call a y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept. And now to the side or where we can find room, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So where it crosses the y-axis. Or it could also be where x equals 0. Okay, wherever my x equals 0, that's what we would call the y-intercept. So even if you don't have necessarily a graph, if you have just a table, you know that that is going to be your y-intercept because x equals 0. You don't even have to worry about graphing it. And then this point over here, our last one, that is what we would call our x-intercept. Okay, and it crosses the x-axis. And it's where y equals 0. So that's basically all of the terminology we need for when we talk about a graph. If you don't understand everything, feel free to go back, rewatch the video for the parts that you missed, pause it, kind of a thing, and then continue on to the next page where you'll just answer a few questions using your notes to make sure that you do understand.